Steve, one of the things you said in part one that really got me going was how people don't maybe understand it. You know what I mean? And so I was thinking about, like, when we think of the supernatural, like maybe we're thinking about like spooky stuff or and I think that might be where my mind is going. Like, oh, I saw a dead person, or you know what I mean? Like, it's gone off the rails a little bit. I don't think that's what the scriptures is talking about when it says the battle that we fight is not of flesh and blood, but against principalities and spirits. What would you say to that? Like, what does that mean exactly?
Well, I think one of the reasons is we think supernatural means totally irrational and not based in reality, when that's not really the idea of supernatural. Supernatural means it goes above and beyond our irrationality and so forth, but it doesn't mean it's counter to our rationality. For example, when Jesus was raised from the dead, let's use that example, and he was raised from the dead, that was a supernatural experience. But what does the scripture tell us? How many people saw him walking around after that? How many people did he appear to? You remember what the number was?
I think it's
in the scripture.
Over 500.
500, yeah. There was 500 people he appeared to. So while it was a supernatural experience, it was not one that could not be verified by 500 people. You know what I'm saying? So I think the idea is supernatural for us. Some of us, we think it means it can never be verified. It could never be reality. What did Thomas say when he saw him there? He said he saw the nails in his hand. The nail holes,
right?
The nail scars in his hand. He said, "My Lord and my God." He knew that supernatural experience had been. But so 500 people saw him. So supernatural doesn't have to be a lack of reality. It can become reality and can be verified as reality. So Jesus coming and living among us, he brought many proofs. If you read people like Josh McDowell and stuff, the evidence for the resurrection. There's probably more evidence for the resurrection than almost any other human event in history. If you read people like him who came in with a natural perspective, thinking that he was going to be able to not disrespect, that's not the word. He was going to disprove. He was going to disprove that the evidence happened. But the more he got into it, the more he saw there was actually natural evidence that a supernatural event had occurred. So I think that is what we can take a look at and say, what are the natural evidences that a supernatural event has occurred? So in seeing it supernatural, there are people that are prayed for, and the doctors cannot explain what happened. We do not know what happened here. You know what I'm saying? And Lee Strobel, again, using that book, Seeing Supernatural, he talks about doctors he's gone in and different experiences. And there's been people who have done great research on this that show that supernatural events can be naturally observed, or at least can be naturally discussed too. So supernatural does not mean lack of reality, number one. Because then you get into fantasy, because some people think supernatural and fantasy are the same thing. I don't think they are in a scriptural understanding of that.
Gotcha. My grandmother one time, and I think this is what got me thinking like that, was she was going to see her mother's grave, right? And this was many years ago, and my grandfather, we call him Pap. His name was Virgil. And they were coming up around the bend there, and she got upset with my grandfather because she saw Jesus on the edge of the woods, and he wouldn't pay no attention.
Yeah.
And she's just as convinced as ever. And when you hear stuff like that and see, do you think Jesus, like those things happen? And I was thinking about what you were talking about, the supernatural, like I would think there's purpose in it, right? Like, or is it always happening? And then every once in a blue moon, we get to walk into that kingdom and see it.
I think it's happening a lot.
Well, it's happening way more than you think, because a lot of times we'll trivialize the supernatural. Like you hear people talk about some big huge thing that happened to them, and leading up to it, they were headed somewhere else, and they're like, I don't my gut told me I just needed to XYZ, and then they made a different decision, and then this huge thing happened. It's like, and we just say, oh yeah, it was my gut. It was a gut feeling that led me here or there. And I'm not saying that every time somebody says, oh, I had a gut feeling about something, that it's something supernatural. That's certainly not what I'm saying. But there are times like that where we attribute big things like that happening to just some kind of coincidence that led me here or there.
Another way that's described, Eric, and a lot of people is, some people say something told me.
Right.
Something told me.
That's exactly what I mean.
Yeah, I know. I agree. And I would say that, I would hear people say that phrase sometimes, but for the Christian, do I say something told me, or do I say someone told me? Someone told me. If I believe in the supernatural, I believe he actually speaks to me and communicates to me. In my mind, it may not be always loudly, but I would say this over and over. I've actually heard things in my head louder than people hollering at me. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't something that struck my ear. It was something that struck my heart, my mind, and I was convinced that that was a supernatural communication. What is prayer? Prayer should be supernatural communication. It goes above and beyond me just talking to someone else. I'm talking to the God of the universe. And so why are we scared of the supernatural when prayer itself, which we always propose is an important thing to do, is by itself a supernatural communication?
Don't you think some of it is like just completely misunderstood though as well? Or even just big time misinterpretations of what exactly qualifies as supernatural, because the Bible talks about, being kind to strangers because, by doing so, some have entertained angels. Like, I don't think it's always like this thing, this big, glorious, like bright white light of supernatural activity.
That's right.
And sometimes it's literally just like in being kind to a stranger, that was also like the supernatural was in that as well.
That's right.
So I think these are my words, not yours, but I'm extrapolating from what you said.
Extrapolating.
Wow.
Let's plug that one into the
Here we
dictionary.
go.
Talk to
I think there's like
He missed it by a letter. Yeah,
extrapolations, visions. So if you're a couple of LDS guys on a bicycle, those could be angels.
No. And I told him,
You did not just crack that can open.
I don't know. I'm gonna doubt that. But
I'm gonna guess no, and I'm gonna say, yeah, you did crack that can open.
I don't think God is sending angels down here as bait.
Yeah.
To impersonate other people from other religions. I don't think. I'm gonna go ahead and disagree with you there and say no.
I think that might be a good point.
Well,
It's not
you'd be
bait.
disagreeing with yourself because I took what you said and I extrapolated.
Still not getting further.
Okay, so let's take this another step. So what would you say then to, and this is in detail time after time, there are stories after stories after stories of people in other cultures and other countries, particularly Muslim countries, who are saying that they see in a vision, they see Jesus. They describe Jesus as the New Testament describes him, particularly like Revelation and stuff. And they describe it, and they've never heard of Jesus. So it's not like they're creating in their head something that's there. Now, and Strobel talks about this. I mean, this has been documented time after time after time now throughout our world, and it's happening now. It's not just something that happened years ago or every now and then. It is happening on a regular basis. Now, what he details is that experience with Jesus is not necessarily the things that leads them to salvation, but that experience makes them open to hear about his salvation. You know what I'm saying? But they will, and there will people in different countries obviously don't know each other. They've never heard about Jesus. They don't know anything about Jesus, and they're seeing him in the vision, and they start detailing this to people. And then they go looking for somebody who can explain to them what they saw.
Huh.
And that has been shown time after time in various countries. I don't mean here or there. I mean in major percentages of people. It's pretty crazy. So that is a supernatural thing where this vision of Jesus is what sparks their interest in hearing more about him. And I think the supernatural healing can do that. Silver and gold have I none, but such as I have give I you. In the name of Jesus Christ, rise up and walk. There's an example of a supernatural thing. He was looking for something natural, and Jesus gave him, the disciples gave him the supernatural Jesus.
Would there always be a purpose in you seeing something supernatural?
Oh yeah.
Like would there?
It's not random,
right?
I mean, it may seem random to us, but I agree with you. It's not just so you can see something supernatural. I think it's purposeful. It's real.
I think a lot of people want supernatural thing or God to do supernatural things, especially when it comes to healing and things like that. This might be a little too harsh to say it this way, but I think a lot of people want to see that kind of things to give themselves reassurances for their doubts.
Okay, yeah.
I'm not saying that's always the case. That is, of course not. Sometimes we want to see supernatural healing because we love the person in pain, obviously. But I think that that sort of thing can be part of it. But I think God is he's especially interested in doing things like that for someone who doesn't yet believe in him. Like Derek, I remember you telling a story. This would have been years and years and years ago, of course, before your wife was saved, about a time you were, that she was in prayer about a headache, right?
Yes, she would have been, it was not before.
It was okay. So, okay, never mind. So I'll take that back. Okay. So it was after.
Yeah.
But she would have been a young Christian.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so there was an opportunity there, not an opportunity. I hate to say it like that, but like there was something there where I think, in that moment, God was almost like catching her up to speed. She didn't have that whole childhood of here's what Jesus is, here's who God is, here's who Jesus is, here's what he does for you, here's what he's capable of. And it's almost like in that moment, he's like bringing her up to speed of like, this is what I can do.
Yeah.
Kind of moment, which I think that's the kind of stuff where you, like, I don't know. It's just,
there were several events like that early in her walk that were like very obvious.
And confirming, I would think.
I don't know that she needed confirmation at those points. Yeah. But it was just one of those things that just kind of like, reinforces the power of what you're doing, and
yeah, I mean,
and maybe even just, and also just like learning the practice of,
here's why this is
like,
important.
Yeah. And like, there's, it's just been kind of one of those things that you look back on, and there's been times where, I
I really like led the charge on that stuff early. You know, several of them were before, or a couple of them were before we were ever even married, and now, you know, like I'll look back and she'll be talking about, you know, like praying for something, and I was like, man, I haven't even prayed about that yet. But like it like goes to show you that, you know, not necessarily like the catch up thing that you were talking about, like getting, but yeah, it's just kind of like
it's wonderful when it happens.
But it's like you know, she's seen the power and knows that it's real, and now like that's a part of like every, you know, she prays those prayers for other people now too. So,
well, you know, I'll never forget when I was headed to the hospital. I don't know if I've talked about this much. I've talked about some other things related to Isaac and Isaac's, but the time when we were, you know, hoping he wasn't going to come, and I was headed to the hospital to, you know, to pray. And you guys didn't know I was coming, and I was turning off of Alford Avenue onto 65 South, and on that ramp, I turned onto the ramp, and I'm telling you, I saw as though Jesus, he said, in the direction of Grandview Hospital, and he said to me, "I'm already there."
Yeah, I remember you talking about that.
Wow, and you talk about a supernatural that. I couldn't have created that.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But when we talk about confirmation or affirmation, or just like, I knew he was already there.
Sure.
But just in that moment, he decided to reveal himself to me to remind me he was already there. It was not like him telling me that is what made it real. He was telling me that and say, because it was real. It was already happening.
I remember that kind of jogs the memory of when, Derek, you were and Catherine were going to your appointment for your second child, I guess probably like 20 weeks or so. Whenever it was, you found out all the stuff that was going on, and y'all were having an appointment and hadn't heard how it was going. And then something in my gut, you know, knew something was going to be wrong. That there was something that was going to be wrong. And I knew in that moment, as I was praying, the Lord told me that, you know, it's like, he didn't tell me what was wrong. He didn't give me predictive powers about what was happening and what was going to be the issue. He was like, but you have to tell, you're going to have to tell Derek. I forget how he said it exactly. It's like, but you're going to have to tell Derek and I would need you to tell Derek and Catherine that she's a promised child. And so that she'll be here. Yeah, I don't know if I knew she was a girl at that point or not, but anyways, that was, yeah. And, you know, it's like that kind of stuff where you're like, well, maybe I just heard that in my head. You know, like, come on now.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I think you called me. So then, I
think so.
You know, and
yeah, and you got to tell him.
And I've never been really good about like especially being on the phone with somebody and being like, let me pray for you real quick. Yeah. But Derek and I were on the phone, and he was like, pray for him, and as you're praying, that's when you let him know that she is, you know, cool. Like I said, I can't remember if we knew she was if I knew she was a girl, but that's when you let you know him know that that I've promised that she's going to be here. Yeah.
Promised child.
But it doesn't take all the worry away. Like,
no,
you know, you still fall within your humanity of imperfection, and you know, and as we've told these stories the last couple 5 minutes or whatever. So if you're new to the podcast or you've only ever listened to those clips, obviously we've had some rough pregnancies. For our 2 children, and both of them were born healthy and all that. But I think about, would I choose to go through that again? No.
Right.
We made that decision. We're not gonna do this again because of that. But would I believe, if it did happen, would I believe that he would be with us just the same? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't, and I wouldn't even know what that would look like, because I had a vision when Isaac, or when Catherine was in the hospital with Isaac for a few days before he was born, and it was 24. She was 24 weeks pregnant. I think I've told the story on the podcast, but like, I had a vision of ask God to, like, please hold my son, because I can't be there for him right now. He's not born. Like, there's nothing I can do. I'm sitting here helpless in the hospital. Like, nothing I can do. Please take care of my son, because I can't do anything as father right now. And I had a vision, of Isaac being taken care of, and that didn't stop the trouble. Right, he came early, way earlier than he should have, at 31 weeks and like 6 days or something like that. Spent a month in the NICU, and with some some heart stuff that he had to grow out of, and all that, and it didn't. The reassurance and the work that God didn't mean that our troubles were over. Mm-hmm. Didn't mean that everything was all of a sudden great, but he through all of those things, and all of the people telling us, the 2 of you, the reassurance that God sent you, the reassurance that God sent us. It didn't mean that it was just smooth sailing.
Yeah, it doesn't make you not human the rest of the way, but it does allow you to get to the end of the road and look back and say, dadgummit, he had it the whole time.
That's it.
And then so when somebody else is going through it, you're like, look, I can't tell you, there's nothing I can say that's going to make this feel good, or all of a sudden be better, but I promise you he's got it in in the middle of all of this stuff.
And I've got to get, like, even there's still some stuff like that I deal with internally when I hear conversations like that, and I've got to get better at this so that I can pass on that the work that God has done in our lives, because I've talked with a couple of different people who are, like, women who are pregnant right now, going through some stuff that is, like, kind of, scary with their kids. And it's, like, making me sick to my stomach, to the point that I'm like, I can't hear this conversation that we're having right now. Like, I'm going to step outside. Y'all let me know when we're talking about something else. And, I've got to, like, there's still a level of that I have to deal with, so that I can talk with other people and be like, I can't tell you everything's going to be okay, but I can tell you that blah, blah, so.
Well, I think that one way to look at this, and maybe this would be one way, Chris, so you talked about defining it. I think sometimes it's easier when we see it as supernatural intervention. In other words, the supernatural intervenes into the middle of our natural processes, our natural troubles, our natural struggles, whatever those are. And so I like to think about a supernatural intervention, and I want you to know I welcome supernatural intervention. I want God intervening at all times. And the scripture kind of gives us that, because he said, even in salvation, Jesus, it's a supernatural intervention. You know what I'm saying? He comes into the middle of it. So salvation itself is a supernatural event, but it's not the only kind of supernatural event. There are some people who say, well, salvation's the only thing that is supernatural anymore in our day and age today. The miracles are gone and all that kind of thing. Miracles are nothing more than a supernatural intervention, because they don't, and to say that they're gone now means that you probably don't have struggled to even understand the supernatural intervention that happens at salvation. Because when it says that he gives me a new identity, that's a supernatural intervention. That's not a natural event. When he gives me a new kingdom, that's a supernatural event, for that to happen. When he gives me a new heart, that's a supernatural invention. When he forgives me of my sin, that's supernatural intervention.
White boy.
That's what I'm talking about.
Good Lord, listen at him roll.
It's a supernatural intervention. And then when the Holy Spirit comes and lives in me, the scripture says he's a seal until the day of redemption. So he lives in me. It's the mystery of the gospel, like we talked about earlier. Christ in you, the hope of glory. He's supernaturally intervening all the time. The problem we have is not that it's not happening, it's that we're not recognizing it. And we need to recognize it over and over again.
I think we get caught up when we think supernatural, like say we think something crazy.
Yeah, we do.
Like, man, I saw a devil walking.
It's always visions. It's always
yeah.
But to your point,
something with your eyes.
It's not near about the only way it happens. Not near about. It does include that, but it doesn't. That's not the only way.
And I get one of my common prayers, and I do this for when I pray before Sundays or for families, that we would be aware of the presence of God, because it's not that he's not here. It's that a lot of times we just have to like flip the switch to be like, hey, he's here. And that's what irks me about people who talk about like, worship, the worship shouldn't play it on people's emotions. It's like, if you would understand that the King of the universe is here in the room with you, then that should be emotional.
That's a little bit emotional.
That sparks emotion. In me.
We're using words like extrapolate and irks, and what is happening right now?
So close on that word.
He's so close.
Listen. Fifth grade.
Fifth.
Hey, Calvary Christian School, spelling bee champ. 2 years in a row.
So on the street, Chris, as you know,
yes, sir.
Since you talked to some people on the street before, they have a phrase.
Talk to me.
I don't know if it might be old school by now. And that phrase is, you better recognize.
Oh, yeah.
You better recognize. And I would say when it comes to supernatural, you better recognize. You better recognize.
They had a saying on the street.
No.
I asked if it was, I said it might be old school. I gave you that.
Had.
Steve, don't listen to that.
There's still some old school dudes on the street, man. They're still saying it. You better recognize. I mean, I hear it in prison. Of course, they've been off the street for 20 years.
Hey, this is a guy wearing a wiffle on the bluff
wall.
Yeah.
Now they're making fun of me, Chris, so we need to stop.
I know what they're doing.
I'm grateful for supernatural intervention of God.
Yeah, me too.
I welcome it with open arms. We need it. It is our lifeblood in a world that's torn apart naturally. We have to have a supernatural touch from God every day, I think. And I'm grateful that he's still doing it.
So if you're listening to us, like Derek mentioned, our prayer for you is that you're aware of the work that God is doing in and around your life. So for Derek and Steve, Chris behind the cameras, my name's Eric, and this has been Preacher in the Hat. We'll see you next time.